Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Yep, just had to make. Okay, guess what? It's 6 o'clock and it is the Downtown Management Board meeting for Tuesday, September 17th. I'd like to call this to order. And the first on our list is the consent agenda. Oh, you didn't get the ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Sorry.
No. Ding, 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 it's time. Okay,
First take was better.
yeah. So the first on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we have the approval. Yeah, just had to. What?
Someone has their phone maybe near the microphone. Might be, just make sure you don't have volume on.
Okay, anybody? Echo?
Oh, that's weird. Is there some?
No, well, I mean, there's one person watching, but I guarantee that's Becky Goodman.
Oh, she just wants to see how I do.
I don't know, okay, go.
Okay, so we're at the consent agenda again. And we have the approval of the minutes, the payment of the August bills, and the acceptance of the August expense and income reports. Does anybody have any questions about that, or would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes, the payment of the August bills, and the acceptance of August expense and income report.
Thank you, Drew.
Second.
And Joe seconds that. All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? All right.
Sorry, that meant to be, we
All
need to do.
right. That passes. So now public comment, but we have no public here and I don't see anybody asking any questions online. So next we will get into the new business and the first topic is the consideration and possible adoption of the proposed 2025 downtown programs and services budget. Amy, would you want to give any input on that or?
Yes, what I'll do is I will go through, I'll start with programs and services, go through that budget, give an overview, and then open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The 2025 proposed program and services budget is an amount of $276,300. This amount includes a 3% increase in the 2024 special assessment levy, bringing in an additional approximately $3,500. And also a use of the fund balance, the programs and services fund balance of 104.
Guess what? It's 6 o'clock. And it is. Yeah. Tuesday, September. August. And the first on the list is the consent.
Maybe.
And really just
What,
laying us on thick.
I think we're good, okay. I think I know what the issue was. Okay, we're good. Okay, continue.
Okay, continue.
Okay.
The fund balance of 104,425 at the end of 2025, the fund balance is projected. So what the current budget is projecting is at the end of next year, if this budget were to be approved, we would continue to have a fund balance of approximately $140,000. The budget does not include a transfer from the parking fund, and the proposed special assessment revenue would result in the following levy. And I'm sorry, this is kind of not the easiest to read. First floor would be 0.2163 cents per square foot. Non-first floor would be 0.0544 or about 5 cents per square foot. And vacant land would be about 6.5 cents per square foot. And the chart here is just showing you the breakout of the revenues. 45% comes from special assessment, and that is including the 3% increase. 37% comes from fund balance. 16% comes from program revenue, and 2% is penalties and interest. Andy, are you admitting, I see there's 2 in the waiting room? Okay, so expenditures. I'm just gonna move this. For 2025, as the chart shows, 41% of programs and services is administration, 28% is events, 18% is marketing and promotions, 8% is beautification, and 5% is economic enhancement. The total, and this is just showing you proposed in 2025, the programs and services for DMB events. The proposed expenditure is $50,900. programs and services collaborating events. These are events typically overseen by another organization, whether it's the Chamber or Crooked Tree or Bliss Fest, and we make a contribution to that event. That totals 26,000 for a total of events as 76,900. The main changes for 2025 are that the calendar project was removed from the image campaign, which is where it is currently, and it is on its own line item, so that it's less image, is more of a project, so we put it on its own line item. The public art expenditure has been moved to the parking fund. And the reason for that is it's really not it's not an event, it's not a program or service, it's more of a capital expense. If it's public art, it's likely going to be there for a lengthy duration. And that's typically what we use the capital projects and the parking fund for. And then really the focus is on trying to enhance existing events. One thing that has not changed, and that is that the trolley sponsorship revenue, and we are currently projecting it at 10,000, will continue to go towards programs and services. It isn't the expenditures come out of parking, the revenue is coming up, is being allocated to programs and services. So just to summarize, the programs and services proposed 2025 budget, expenditures are proposed at 276,300. Revenue from assessments, program sponsorships, and other proposed at 172,055, which includes the proposed 3% cost of living allowance. And then the revenue from the fund balance of 104,245. As it was shown earlier, that increase of 3% results in about a $3,500 increase to the budget. On your left are the proposed levy rates. And again, that's about 21.6 cents per square foot on the first floor, 5.4 cents on the non-first floor, and 6.5% on the vacant land. Currently, the levy on the first floor is 21 cents per square foot. Non-first floor is 5.25 cents per square foot, and vacant land is 6.3 cents per square foot. Again, the special assessment levy requires a series of public hearings at City Council. So if after discussion of the proposed budget, you are not yet ready to move the budget onto the city manager and ultimately City Council, we will need to schedule a public hearing or a special meeting before your October regular meeting, just to get on the right timeline. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Is the special assessment where we explored a different rate for an unoccupied building? Is that something?
Yes, and I know that discussion has been, I know that's come up before, that can we assess
Yeah.
vacant buildings high, and we have the vacant land.
Right,
Because special assessments are really a fee for service. If you have a vacant building, you're not requiring the services. I think legal's opinion was it would be very challengeable to do a special assessment for the purposes of programs and services when you're not requiring programs and services.
Vacant land is requiring that.
You said, but vacant land is requiring special services.
I think vacant land because it potentially could be developed. So having, I mean, if it's a development site, then having a healthy, robust downtown is beneficial. I'm not saying a vacant building, that isn't true as well. That's just my understanding of why vacant, I mean, I think the desire is to penalize people that keep their buildings vacant. I just don't think the programs and services assessment is the way that we can accomplish that. Yeah.
Are we ready to adopt this proposed 2025 downtown programs and services budget at this time?
I'll throw a motion on the floor that we accept the downtown assessment budget for 2025 as written,
As presented,
as presented. Thank you.
Any sec?
I can second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes. No special meeting
all right.
needed at this time.
Do you at this point, I guess the next item on the agenda is, before I go to parking fund, there was the memo that, a motion needs to be made to move, let me just find it.
For the city manager.
To request the city manager make the recommendation to city council that the levy be assessed at a 3% increase over the 2025 levy. That's the bottom line in your memo regarding the proposed 2024 programs and services special assessment.
So moved. I did it last year too, so everybody's gonna love me. So second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much for now to recommend to the city council. All right, next on our list then is the consideration and possible adoption of the proposed 2025 parking budget.
Okay. The proposed 2025 parking fund budget is proposed to be $1,234,500, which is a 1% increase over the 2024 budget. 2024 year-end revenues are currently projected to be $263,369 less than budgeted. And so we're ending the year with almost $265,000 less in revenue than projected. The 2025 revenues are projected to be $909,700, which is $246,000 less than was budgeted for the current fiscal year. Again, the chart is showing you the breakdown of the revenue sources. The highest revenue source are street meters, followed by fines, and then park mobile, permits, credit card payments, which is Heartland, then parking lots. Interest payments, which have been much higher this fiscal year and the last than it has been the case for many years. And then meter bags and meter sponsorships both come in at about 1% of your revenue. I show you this chart because we are projecting less revenue than projected for this year's budget, and we are also proposing a conservative revenue estimate going into 2025. This chart is showing you the major funding categories, which are streets, which is the tall, in most of these, it's the biggest bar. Lots is in orange, fines is in gray, permits is in yellow, and park mobile is in blue. And you will see it fluctuates quite a bit. 23 and 24 have seen increases in fines. What I should say is the budget for 2024 was following the 2023 budget or estimated fines, and so it was projecting high, which is not what we have been experiencing. So this just shows you it does fluctuate. It is not a great science when we're trying to estimate parking revenues. For example, with some of the changes that were approved by council last night, we are reducing permit rates in 2 of our lots, which we anticipate will have more people buying permits than paying at the meter. So there's a shift there where also the permits are less expensive. And then the change in late fees. So every time you change something, it's a little hard to forecast what's going on. We also know Seville lot will be under construction for at least 2 months, if not 3, next spring. So again, April and I tried to be conservative on the revenue projection for next year. On the expenditure side, 24 year-end expenditures are projected to be 779,800, which is 441,700 less than budgeted, or 63.8% of what was budgeted for expenditures. Again, this was largely because we did not undertake the capital projects. And there were some other areas that had cost savings. So those projects that didn't occur this year are in next year's capital outlay, which is, as you see in the chart, the largest expenditure at 37%. And that includes the renovation of the Seville lot, the purchase and installation of 3 pay stations, repairs to the trolley, and the contribution to the Park Avenue project. Other major expenditure categories are wages and benefits, professional and contracted services, office operations, and then I'll get a little into the what's called here the placemaking projects public arts. This is at the request of the design committee to put a pause on the facade grant program for 2025 and to focus more on identifying and implementing placemaking projects. And this is also where I put in $10,000 for public art that had previously been in the public and programs and services budget. Again, and the other expenditure, which probably comes out of office operations, is with the changes to permit rates and installation of pay stations, we're going to have a lot of new signage that's going to have to be put up. So we have a sizable increase in our signage budget. And with that, I will answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the public art a recurring year over year request?
I put it in, I was not here for the initial discussion on public art. I believe the city is going to be putting it in annually in their general fund. Part of the reason I took it out of programs and services, in addition to it being more of a capital expense, is programs and services can only be expended in downtown. Parking fund, while generally is only spent in downtown, I think city council could decide they want to use it elsewhere. I don't know that they would do that, but clearly programs and services are very restricted to being within the DDA and DMB boundary. But whether public art, the board decides to put that in this year's budget or not is totally up to you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Kind of a lot to take in.
I guess I'll make a comment of thanks to staff for the way that it was presented this year. I think it was really broken down really well. It was easy to understand where things were going, and I very much appreciate that it was very, very easy to understand what initiatives were taking the priority of the budget and things like that. So in terms of like the visual aids, I'm always always need a good visual aid. So thanks for the time that was put on that. I think that the revenues for next year make sense, especially on the parking management side. Is there is that the right balance, you think, in the direction that we need to take for next year in terms of being, obviously fines are going to be down from where, because we're as a city making an initiative to forgive 50% of people out of the gate. So I think that that's important to highlight, is that we're responding to some concerns from the city and concerns from council to be able to be a more friendly neighbor, so to speak. And so the deficit that we saw kind of on the bar graph of why fines is down is because we're trying to move in a direction of being, I don't want to say more hospitable or anything along those lines, because that it says we were converse. But I think that it's important to make note of we listened to some community concerns and we made some changes accordingly. And so those are reflected in the budget. So I guess, April, is that the direction that you feel is most appropriate for that budget? And is there any concerns that you have moving into next year?
No, I think that it's a great point of that we've listened to the community and we're providing not just the one courtesy ticket a year, but this is for anyone that continues to have, right, more fun longer or shopping longer than what they thought. The meter runs out. Now it's only a $5 issue instead of 10, and they can have that recurring throughout the year. There's no limitations. The other thing that I think that we're really pushing is trying to get more compliance and understanding of all the different ways to pay for parking or where there's free parking. So especially with the permits, and then really trying to get more employees to park in the permitted areas that are more cost effective, that I think that's the positive way of getting revenue without going after non-compliance. So, I mean, I think that's where we're comfortable at this point. We'll see how the year goes, but.
How many people are actually taking advantage of that? Quick reaction to pay to obtain a $5 parking ticket instead of 10.
Funny you should ask.
I was just
have it on my
curious.
little
I mean,
sheet
I
here.
just think that's good for everybody to know.
So, from year to date, so January 1 through September 15th, the number of tickets paid within the first week before the late fee goes on, 88% of the tickets are being paid. So out of that 88%, it's 24% are actually taking advantage of the 50% within the 24 hours.
24%.
It's 24 hours, yeah, for the 50%. And I think that's what Drew was referring to earlier, was the 50% if you pay within 24 hours of receiving the ticket. But I think the 88% number also demonstrates that the late fees that were tacked on before, that it's getting smaller and smaller anyway, so.
Yeah, thanks for making sense of whatever I was saying, but yeah, that was what I was after, is it can look like from a budgetary planning perspective that we're planning to have a deficit, and that's not really accurate. What's accurate is we looked at the policies, we looked at the procedures for those fines, and we're not only are we providing a greater benefit that, based off of the metrics you shared, a lot of people are taking advantage of. And I just think it's important to bring those positive features to light, that we've made those steps in the parking committee and from the parking budget side of things. Just on paper, it translates like we're stepping off the gas, so to speak, but in reality, we're listening to some of the concerns of the community and trying to steward the parking in the best way that we know how. So thanks for highlighting those things.
Are you personally getting good feedback from that? I mean, it's hard because when you have the parking issues that we've had, the room was filled. But when you are kind of trying to be proactive and be a good listener, and we've got, one person, thank you. But I'm just saying, do you think it's a good feeling that we've been listening? Have you heard or getting any feedback?
We've been talking about it, and city council just approved the permit rates and then the reduction in the late fees last night. So we're preparing, some documents and then how we're going to share that with the community. But leading up to it, with some of our more frequent visitors in the office and then walking around, they're really excited about it. That especially the $30 permits between Park Garden and Petrie is on both sides of town, very accessible to wherever they need to be, and that's a very reasonable rate. So it's a good thing.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Are we ready to adopt the proposed 2025 parking budget?
I I'm debating if we want to make mention of the public art. It's a very small thing, but I'm just wondering if we want to focus that on the downtown. Is that something that anybody would consider, or are we okay with supporting the downtown art? No matter where they decide to put it?
I mean, whether it's downtown or whether it's in the city.
Correct, yeah.
I would think. Thank you. I would think that we would. Forgive me if I'm wrong here, but when we be approached, if it were going to be downtown. It just seems that if it were going to be downtown, then we would be approached as far as future.
Well, that's what I don't know.
Recommendation, yeah.
That's what I don't know. And so I'm all about public art in whatever shape or form. I'm just wondering if it, maybe it's not an issue and maybe it's just an initiative of the city that we want to participate with and to the fullest extent, especially within the realm of the parking fund. But is that something worth considering? That it's focused to downtown?
You mean, do you also mean, that it be a yearly?
I guess I just don't remember if it was, I mean, I know the commission is yearly. And I just don't know if anybody if it's the same amounts that they're looking for the initiative for this year, or what sort of projects are coming to light. Maybe it's not worth the discussion.
I can answer that
Okay.
because I sit on the commission.
Sure.
Representing the management board. And again, the mural is in downtown.
Yeah.
Next year's project actually is, they're looking at Sunset Park as their proposed location for public art next year.
Mhm.
That, you know, if we have it in the budget, it doesn't preclude us from working with somebody on public art. It would still have to go through the public art commission process.
Mhm.
But it potentially could be above and beyond what the city is focusing on for Sunset Park.
Got it. Okay.
But it would be good to have clear direction of the intent of the board for that money. If we are saying we're willing to spend up to 10,000 on public art, is that just within downtown, or is it anywhere that city council determines they're going to put public art?
Thanks for that explanation.
And later on, you know, when we discuss this project, you know, it states the 2024 budget includes the 10,000 in funding and public art in downtown, which the tunnel is within. So that would be for that, but so we can be open to the 2025 location, or I guess we could go above and beyond that. You said
Above and beyond,
to bring something downtown for the public art. It still have to go through the. You had said something about the Sunset Park,
yeah,
but we could go above and beyond that.
right, that's the next location the Public Arts Commission is focusing on. But, you know, that doesn't preclude someone else wanting to propose public art somewhere else. It would still have to go through the Public Art Commission process, but the management board, I guess, could consider contributing to that public art if they so chose.
Quick question about the public art. And is it just does the questions all stem from moving it from the programs to the parking fund, where the city then has more access to it because it's in that fund? I mean, I know why you wanted to move it. Is it better to not move it though, so that we feel like it's secure?
The main reason to move it, there's a couple reasons. Your programs and services budget is tight. That's why we have to use fund balance. It also really isn't a program or a service. So it doesn't make sense to me to be coming out of that pot of money. Again, I don't know what the initial discussion was about public art, if it was just that the DMB wants to contribute to public art anywhere or exclusively downtown. But I do think moving it to parking fund makes it more likely or able to be used outside of downtown. But the DM and truly whatever the management board decides, city council could overrule. But I think you should make your interests known.
That was more of my intent of bringing up the topic, is I think that we should discuss. If it needs to be earmarked or not is number one, and I think the downtown management board as a whole, as long as I've been a participant, has always been very receptive to when people bring things to the board in the downtown. So if somebody brought public art, now that there's some form of organization to it, that there's a public art commission that they have to go in front of, instead of saying, we're just gonna ask the DMB for money to be able to produce this public art. I think we would continue that, wanting to be receptive to those types of conversations. But it's a little bit more structured now with the public art commission. So I don't know if I have a preference one way or the other, but I kind of believe that the downtown funds could be earmarked for downtown art. But I honestly don't recall what the intention was when we first were presented with this idea of whether or not this was to produce downtown art or city of Petoskey art. It doesn't really matter. It rises all ships, but I do think that this board should have some consideration to really want to be focused on the central business district. So I think it's worth the discussion before we just approve it, of should we earmark it to just the central business district, or we don't care, we believe in public art. I'm not saying one way we don't believe in public art, but I'm just saying, like, is it worthwhile to put those guardrails of intent? That doesn't mean they have to listen to it, but do we want that intent to be embedded somewhere?
That was my thought too. And we don't have to do anything on this tonight to go forward with it.
Can we make that part of the motion though? That you pass the
Yeah,
budget,
do that.
and be earmarked. That line item of $10,000 is for downtown art.
Yeah,
Public art located downtown,
Yeah.
within the downtown
Within-
boundaries.
Yeah.
so then how is that gonna play through when we know that the next commissioned art is gonna be at the Sunset Park?
Then we,
Microphone.
then we don't
Provided.
provide it,
Mhm.
right? We don't provide that
Mhm.
extra money for that.
Or we at least, the line item it could say something that we need to approve of it as a benefit of downtown as well. Where I would think that Sunset Park would be a benefit to downtown as well, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanna be careful, and it's not like I'm saying public art is the worst, but I'm just saying, like, we have a responsibility to the downtown as a whole. So that's what I'm trying to bring up the discussion on, and I think it would be great to have more art in Sunset Park. Every night most nights, there's some pretty beautiful art as well. So to bring more presence to that park is never bad, but I think even if we just put in an earmark of with special preference to art installations or art pieces that are focused on the central business district could at least give some semblance that we're trying to attract and bring things to the central business district.
You may want to do it a little broader and be your DDA, DMB boundary.
Okay.
Because your district takes in more than the central business district zoning district. So it takes in part of the Greenway corridor all the way down to Emmett Street and up to Winter Park. So being the downtown Greenway corridor, that might be a really logical place to put art.
I don't know if we need to put anything in the motion or in there. I think maybe we could just, maybe we can just funnel this to our representative on the commission that's saying that this is what we're supporting, putting the art in those areas. Do we, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I would rather the management board, I like the idea of including it in your motion. Because otherwise it puts me in a position going to the art commission of saying, well, I think the management board would rather give their money to art downtown.
What's the process for us distributing our downtown art? Like, if we approve it in the budget now, are we then gonna have another? Is it just gonna get spent on whatever, or would we then be able to talk about it at the meeting that it's going out at? Does that make sense?
It could come back to you because maybe the board decides they want to be proactive on recruiting someone to do some kind of public art. But again, it's the ultimate approval will have to go to the Arts Commission. It's the funding piece that I'm trying to get clear on.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about approving the art. I'm saying approving our funding.
Yes.
If this motion is saying it's for public art, is it saying for this next project from the Public Art Commission in 2025? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, are we gonna, this is approved in the budget, but it's how it's distributed to that specific project, we're making that approval right now. Next year. Or whatever, it's whatever, the dollars that we're saying right now
Yes.
are just going to the commission.
No,
No,
they're in your budget.
okay,
And it may be nobody comes forward or I mean, I would foresee this something that maybe the design committee would be working on if they wanted to try to find someone that wanted to do either permanent or temporary public art. But it's there, it would have to. Probably the process would be. You would tentatively approve use of. Money. Towards something pending approval of the Arts Commission. Or we say, go to the Arts Commission, if they approve it, we will. Provide up to X dollars towards your art. So there's definitely a lot of process still that would happen, and it's quite possible. That $10,000 doesn't get spent this year. If we know the Public Art Commission doesn't intend to do art in downtown this year, maybe this is a year we don't put it in our budget. Maybe every year we consider whether we're putting money to public art or not public art.
Would have never known about the sunset thing until you said that, I guess.
yeah, I think,
You know,
I think we put it in the budget, and then if we don't get a project that's in downtown, we don't approve. The dollars going to the project. That seems. That seems like the straightforward solution to me.
Or, you know, we could always, you know,
Or
consider it
like, yeah.
like the Sunset Park does affect the
Although-
downtown.
we're getting a little, it's a very black and white if it's in your district. If we're
Yes.
saying or benefits downtown, then it's more subjective and that, it's not that you can't do that, but it's just a little more subjective of what how close does it need to be to benefit downtown? But if that's the way you wanna do it, that's fine.
Well, I think we're all visualizing this public art as something that benefits the pedestrians that will shop downtown. Right? So, so having those parameters in there as far as within the downtown DDA district
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. Not saying we wouldn't consider Sunset Park. It's just saying, this is going forward, we're gonna put this in the budget, and this is where we want it, this is where we hope, or this is where we expect the downtown.
Or you're prioritizing art in downtown, but would consider art in proximity to the downtown district that benefits downtown. I think that's what I hear.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of, we approve it in the budget, like what Joe's advocating for. But I do think that it's not against our best interest to say something along the lines of, with special consideration to public art installations within the downtown management board district. Or however we need to phrase it, of within our jurisdiction, so to speak.
Right.
I do think that I don't think it's a bad idea to give some of the intent of what this board's mission is, and that's to bring things to the area in which we have the assessment and the area in which we have we're trying to bring the pedestrian greenscape, walkways, whatever up, because I think there's a lot of opportunity for in the central business district. I don't think we need to go as far as saying we won't participate in anything outside of the district, but I do think it's with special consideration to the inside the district. Not that that's any clearer than maybe what we started with, but. So how about I'll throw a motion on the floor. You guys can shoot it down if you need it or whatever. So I would like to make a motion to accept the parking fund with the change of language in regards to the Public Art Commission, which would include an area of focus within the Downtown Management Board district gets extra consideration for the public art funding.
I second. If that is correct motion. Yeah, which I think it is.
What's the record for longest motion?
I'm probably there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amy, your hand's probably cramped.
No.
There's a recording.
I generally have it. The area of focus is within the downtown district for consideration of public art.
I can't say it better myself.
Okay, you have a motion and a
Yeah.
second.
Yes,
More discussion?
more discussion at all, or? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, now we've got the reports by the Downtown Management Board committees and staff.
I'll go first. You have the marketing and promotions committee minutes, so please let me know if you have any questions. But on top of those, or I guess since our marketing meeting last week, since some other, additives are, so since the board restructured the committee layout a little bit, I think maybe a month or two ago, I have been trying to, recruit, I have been working on 3 subcommittees, to plan, we have I focused on men's night, our men's night out, winter weekend, and then sidewalk sales. So I have been trying to recruit, subcommittee members for these 3 subcommittees. To be honest, no, it doesn't seem really like a lot of interest in him. After multiple attempts of trying to encourage signups, I ended up with 3 people for men's night, 4 people for winter weekend, and 1 for sidewalk sales. So, everyone has ideas, but it doesn't really. I almost thought I sent out messages and I was like, what am I gonna do if there's too many people? But that wasn't then a problem. So since there was only 1 person signed up for sidewalk sales, I am focusing on men's night out and winter weekend right now, obviously for time as well. So in December or January, I'm gonna open back up the sign up for sidewalk sales and hopefully get some, in the meantime, talk to some people or something too and see if they'll kind of get a little bit more interest in that. So let's see, then our men's night out committee met on Monday to start planning for the event in December, which is nice to kind of start getting those things planned for it. We have a busy fall and winter in our office, between events and then between collaborating events and just a lot of, we have the new holiday parade date this year and the addition of men's night out and stuff like that. So it's definitely a busy fall in our office for my department at least. And then we have also, this is something that I encounter throughout the year and have a lot of ideas of event ideas presented to us. And Amy and I have kind of clarified a procedure for that because a lot of time we get phone calls or suggestions of events and we don't really know where to take those. We want to make sure they're heard, and given the right attention. So we've clarified that kind of procedure, and that would be starting with the marketing and promotions director. And then so the person reaches out to me, we talk about that, and then we take that person can present the idea to the marketing and promotions committee that will then ultimately discuss that idea, see if it's something that the downtown wants to take over or not, and then ultimately bring it to the board or not. So it kind of gives us a little bit of a flow chart in a way. In that way we're not kind of stuck. What do we do, so that's helpful, and I think will help going forward as well. And I think that's about it for me, if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
What is a flash wedding?
Oh, well, so okay. I mean, I might want to get ordained and just do a bunch of weddings in the park for a winter weekend. That's what that was. So that was kind of an idea so we were talking about winter weekend. And I know you're regretting getting married a year ago because I could have officiated your wedding, in beautiful Pennsylvania Park. But it was just a suggestion, or just a comment during one of during our marketing meeting. So winter weekend in 2025 is held on Valentine's Day, and someone was like, we were kind of thinking about going kind of with that theme, with ice sculptures and that kind of thing, love and all of that, and I mean, great stuff. And really. And so one of the ideas was like, oh my God, we should host a flash wedding, where you marry a bunch of people in the park or something like that. So I think years ago, maybe there was something attempted for that for like a bunch of people getting married on a Ferris wheel or something like that years ago, and then it ended up not. Yeah, the Ferris wheel never showed up or something like that. But it was just an idea for someone at the marketing committee. So yeah. Oh. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right, so in addition to the notes, I mentioned earlier last night at city council, the blue permit, the C permit was approved for Petrie and Park Garden. So Park Garden is next to City Park Grill and Petrie is next to Grain Train, just for reference. So that was exciting. And then we also finalized the trolley information. So I compared last year with this season and we had so we operated 21 less days this year, which was 549 less driver hours, which equated to about $13,000 savings year over year. And we only had 28 less riders. So we kind of optimized the route. It was consistent between 6 days a week, so no Tuesdays, which I think really equated to having consistency, and we kind of hit the target. Well, I was really excited about that, so. Yes. Other than that, the notes are in there. Any questions?
Have we covered all our committees?
Well, organizational
Organizational
task
task
force
force.
was primarily budget discussions. Design committee. Again, talked through some placemaking projects and then also some suggested changes to the outdoor furnishings guidelines. Specific to dining decks, because I need to work on getting that as an ordinance adopted for next season, so that it would be ordinance versus a resolution.
I was just curious why on the design committee they wanted metal instead of wood railings.
To be more consistent with street furnishings, our public furnishings. Like the lamp posts, really
The benches, those things that are metal, right? That's
Right.
But we also have to be careful because that could put a large impact on the few people that do those in the summertime because of the expense of that.
right,
I think we need to be aware of that and really work with the restaurants that utilize it now to make sure we're not gonna put them in an area where they won't be able to participate. Cause it's probably gonna double their cost easily.
I mean, we've kind of moved away. We were talking about these prefab units that we were gonna order, and then the management board was going to either sell them or store them for businesses, and we likely are not going to move forward with that. Just because the logistics of every single parking space is different. It is different slope, cross slope, regular slope, size, they're all different, so yeah, we'll keep working on it.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, and also just getting it, a big factor for restaurants too is just getting it as something that's set every year, because it's, it's been up in the air the last whatever years.
Right.
If we can just say, hey, this is set and this is a thing that we're doing every year, makes the investment a little more palatable versus being like, yeah, that's gonna work for this year. We'll talk to you, and we'll talk to you in the spring. So that would be nice. And because I understand, like, there's a lot of cities when they do them and they just kind of kept them up since COVID, and some of them look terrible still, which we don't want. But they are a big benefit to, I think, the downtown. So doing it right is important, but making it sure everyone's on the same page and set up for the long term would be great.
And I also think getting this done, early in the year, so
Yeah.
they can respond to it.
Right.
Okay, well, let's move on. Do we have any reports by city staff?
It does not appear so.
It doesn't. I just didn't know if you were gonna chime in. You look ready to chime in with something.
Share.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda then is to the review of the tunnel mural project and funding authorization.
As I or kind of summarized at last month's meeting, the Arts Commission received about 45 or 48 proposals with the call for a mural in the tunnel. The commission, the consensus was to go with a particular artist. They liked the work they did, not so much what they had proposed for our tunnel because their proposal had koi fish in it, but liked some of their other work, so asked them to come up with something that was more native to northern Michigan. So one side of the tunnel will be Great Lakes fish, the other side of the tunnel will be inland lakes fish, and then it'll be a sky above, so it's kind of a aquarium feeling. The art did come in under budget, and I think the proposal was it couldn't exceed 40,000, and I think this came in at about 21,000. It is, I'm not gonna remember the kind of paint he uses. But they're going to move ahead with this before they do the repairs to the tunnel. The timeline actually is going to be later this month. And they're going to have to close the tunnel for a very brief period for about 2 days. So last I heard, it's either September 24th and 25th. They're gonna close it between 9 AM and 3 PM, so people going to work can get through. And if they're leaving, they can get through. Otherwise, they're gonna have to take Lake Street. But that's how quickly, just because of temperature and everything else, they want to get it done. Then they will be doing the repairs to the tunnel, and the artist will come back and touch up anything that needs to be touched up after those repairs. So again, the management board put $10,000 in its budget towards public art. This is the project approved by the Arts Commission. And so I guess what I'm wanting to know is the management board in a position to provide the full $10,000 for this, or less, or what's the pleasure of the board?
We kind of summed up a little bit of our discussion a little earlier with this.
Silly question. Are they still asking for the full amount because it came in under budget or? Yeah,
Oh, from us?
yeah.
Nothing has been said that way. I just raised, because when I brought it to you last month, Jennifer said it is going to come to us, right? I mean, we put it in our budget, but we'd like to know what we are funding. So that's what I'm doing now.
Gotcha. Well, thank you.
Because they're gonna have to do repairs on the tunnel after they do the painting. Does the cost of doing the murals include the touch-up work afterwards?
No, yes, I believe so. Or if not, again, we have some flexibility within the budget. So I think whatever contracts they come up with for them will include them coming back to do the touch-up work.
Would it be possible to just do it after the work is done? Then we don't have to even worry about that?
The goal was really to get something done this year. So the commission felt it was important to get this first piece of public art done this year. And likely those repairs aren't gonna be able to happen until spring.
Okay.
Cause they're kind of major, they're kind of major repairs.
Well,
And
that's what I'm afraid of, that we're gonna spend $21,000. Go and do all the fixes on the tunnel and they're gonna have to redo it in the spring. That has happened so many times. It's like. Let's get the repairs done first and then put the mural up. That's just my opinion, but.
and isn't the tunnel closed? In the
Sorry?
winter? And isn't the tunnel closed in the wintertime?
Mhm.
I mean, those stairs are, but I'm not sure.
No, the tunnel stays open all year.
Oh, here, okay.
Yeah,
This there.
the ramp is open.
Signs. What are the tunnel repairs?
Sorry?
What are the tunnel repairs?
There's some concrete work that needs to be done, and then the lights that are in there are not functioning currently, so those have to be. There's some electrical work that has to happen in addition to concrete repairs.
Do they have a cost of what all those repairs are?
No, they have a scope of service and they're going out for bids.
What you guys thinking?
So I was gonna say, is this something that we have to approve, or we're approving if we're putting money towards it, or?
Right, it's the public art is the purview of the Arts Commission. It's really the assigning of downtown, the DMB's budget to
I mean,
the work.
I guess it's not like we can make a motion to say, we'll give you this money if you wait till after the bridge is done, or we are only gonna, that type of thing. Right now, our purview is, are we going to fund this mural or not?
Correct.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound like that, I agree with what you were saying about, the repairs, but that doesn't change what we give,
That's where.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying not do it, just.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying too, but that's not gonna change the number because of the repairs.
I don't know how to randomly pick a number that feels like, hey, we'll give 5,000 to this since it wasn't as much as they thought it was gonna be. That, I don't know how that's a new one to me, to be honest.
Yeah, but also, do we wanna pay for half of it? I think that the gateway of the tunnel is a very important piece of downtown. I think having a mural in that space would bring a much more pleasant experience crossing through the tunnel, especially even if if the lights aren't working, that can be a barrier for people that want to come into downtown as the days are getting shorter. It's part of the gateway to downtown. We have, gateways that are up into downtown, but also it's a vital piece of the puzzle to the beautiful the beautiful waterfront that we have. But that's quite an investment from the downtown for them to not come back to us and say, hey, we came in under budget, this is what we're looking for now. So personally, I would be in favor of funding it because it's such a critical piece of downtown. And I do think what overall the artist came up with is a major benefit. And I hope to see more and more murals in downtown because they can create really positive placemaking experiences for people to visit. But also that could be a lot of places. So maybe they could add something Petoskey like to it too. few Petoskey stones in the bottom, but I'm not on
It's
that.
not your purview.
I'm not on the commission, it's fine, so I would be in favor of it because it's important to downtown.
I agree with that. That just goes back to our original discussion, Sunset Park compared to the downtown. This is all what we wanted was downtown. It's exactly what we spoke of. So, I mean, I'm in favor of funding this too.
Anyone?
Yeah.
How do we pick the number? We wanna.
What are we gonna use the remainder for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just go with the $10,000.
Right.
That's my thought. Because it's not gonna affect whether they, fix it now or then, it's still gonna happen.
I make a motion to do the $10,000 for the art mural, or I don't know what the right wording is.
Public art.
The public art mural project
Public art mural project.
funding.
Yes, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, now we will move on to old business. Does anybody want to talk about old business?
I have no old business for you.
Okay. Well, guess what? That next thing on the list is meeting adjourned.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.